evening, everyone. So tonight's special meeting is a little different. This is a hearing regarding a proposed development. The body that sits before you tonight is not acting as the legislative or policy body tonight. They are the hearings body for the city of Millwood. So I am going to act as the hearings officer. They're going to act as the hearings body. So before we open the meeting, going to go through a few procedures that we normally do as part of public hearings. So we've asked and have asked before that anybody making comments had to be signed in. There's not going to be any opportunity at the conclusion of the sign-in sheets for people to make comments. We're going to go through the sign-in sheet. We've got 25 people on here. We're going to go through those folks, and then we will move on from there. We'll probably take a recess and then come back in, and they'll begin their deliberation. So any comments by anyone in the audience, you have to make them from the podium. You have to come up and speak at the podium. If you want to speak to somebody directly, you speak to me as the hearing officer. No comments addressed at individual members of the hearing body. We're going to ask that when you come up to the podium, you state your name and you state your address for the record. One of the things here is, as we go through this process with the video and the audio, this becomes a record in case there is potentially further litigation. So we need everybody's name and address for a record that could be used in the future. No comment shall be made from the audience. You got to get up, you got to come up, you got to speak when you're called, all that. If you don't come to the podium, you're out of order, you lose your shot to speak. We ask that there be no demonstrations of applause, murmuring. We really ask that folks keep it quiet because we need to hear everything that's being said. So chatter, all that stuff gets picked up. It's distracting, and it's just kind of a lack of courtesy. The other thing I will say is that if somebody at the end of their 3 minutes, does not yield, or somebody continues to make comments from the audience, it is the policy and the prerogative of this body and me to cut off all public comments. So we ask that you police yourself, that you follow the rules. Each person is allowed to speak one time. You can't yield your time to anybody else. If you don't have a comment, you can simply say, if I call your name, you can simply say, I do not wish to make a comment, and we'll move on to the next person. And so this just kind of makes it orderly, it makes it fair to everybody, and we'll go forward from there. So at this point, it is 6:05, and we will open the meeting with a roll call. Ms. Jansen, will you make a call, please?
Mayor Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Beacey.
Present.
Councilmember Culler.
Present.
Councilmember Van Hees.
Here.
Councilmember Sander.
Present.
Councilmember Stravens.
Here.
Thank you.
Let the record show that we have a quorum of the Millwood City Council and of the hearing body tonight. So if we would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our action item tonight is the public hearing for the appeals of the administrative decision. So we have opened the hearing, and at this time, we opened the hearing at 6:06. And so at this time, I'm going to ask each council member by name if any member here of this hearing body has any interest in the proposal or has any communication regarding the proposal outside of the hearing, or has any other conflict of interest for this hearing. Councilmember Stravens.
No.
Councilmember Sander.
No.
Councilmember Van Hees.
No, I do not.
Councilmember Culler.
No.
Councilmember Beacey. So we have no conflicts of interest voiced by the council or by the hearings body. And so at this time, we will move to the staff presentation. Ms. Jansen, would you please begin the presentation?
Thank you. So I am here tonight to present the staff report and findings for the appeal of an administrative decision on file MFP 01-2023. MHP, sorry. So through this process, there's been quite a bit of talk about manufactured and mobile homes in Millwood. And so as part of my presentation tonight, I just wanted to give this to you. Can maybe get the lights. Going back to ordinance number 46, which was adopted in 1955, this was the city's first zoning ordinance. And in that ordinance, trailers, when used as a residence, were allowed. And then you can see ordinance 54B in 1960, trailers and mobile homes were outlawed in all parts of the city. In 1967, manufactured homes were again allowed in residential zones. 87. I'm time traveling. In 2005, manufactured home parks were allowed in the C1 and UR1 zones, provided that they were located on Empire, Butler, Trent, and Fowler. In January 13th of 2015, Ordinance 469 allowed manufactured home parks in the C1 and the UR1 zone, and those regulations that were adopted in 2015 are the regulations that are still on the books today that we'll be looking at as part of my presentation. And then lastly, Ordinance 527, which the City Council adopted last year, was a complete update of the zoning regulation that took a couple of years. No changes to the manufactured home regulations were proposed as part of that update. So this is the application process as it rolled out for the manufactured home park application. The applicant submitted their application to City Hall on January 23rd of this year. It was determined complete on January 25th. On January 27th, staff issued a notice of application. And then on February 8th, an amended notice of application was issued due to some confusion about the SEPA checklist and the requirements for the environmental review. On March 29th, a determination of non-significance was issued on that SEPA determination. And then staff issued the report and findings on April 19th, 2023. Subsequently, the city received 2 appeals of that decision on May 10th and May 11th. One of those was submitted by a single resident of Millwood, and the other, we received 6 different copies of the same appeal, and then signed by various different folks on each of those 6 applications. This is a vicinity map just showing you the lots that are included in this proposal, which is a request to establish a 24-unit manufactured home park on approximately 1.91 acres. You can see that it's located just east of the intersection of Fowler and Empire. These are some photos that were taken last week just to show you what the parcel looks like today. This home, which was built in 1929, is on the property currently and is being utilized as a rental. And then the second lot is just vacant, and you can see that in that picture on the top right. If you've had an opportunity or in the materials that you were provided, it may have looked like there were a couple other rooftops. It looks like at some point there were some accessory buildings there. And you can see in that lower picture, those have been removed. And so we've just got some cement slabs where some buildings used to be. So the municipal code, as I said, these regulations were adopted in 2015, and there is a number of criteria that staff must consider when reviewing the application. So again, this is the aerial photo showing the site currently. Again, those two large accessory buildings have been removed. This is the proposal that the applicant has submitted. You can see that there are 24 units, appropriate for a single wide manufactured or mobile home. So the first criteria that must be met is that manufactured homes may only be located on Empire, Butler, Trent, or Fowler, and you can see that this one is taking direct access from Empire Avenue. The parks must be located where ample street access and utility services are available. And these two lots have obviously fantastic access to Empire and adequate water and sewer service to the lots. One of the requirements is that at least 15% of the gross site area must be in open space or recreational areas. And doing the calculations, this proposal provides 19.9% in open space. A 20-foot strip around the boundary of the park must be landscaped, and that is shown on the plans. Each structure must be set back as follows: 20 feet from the boundary of the park, so that would be around all perimeters, 20 feet from the public right-of-way, 10 feet from the interior drive, and 16 feet between each proposed manufactured home. The private street shall be improved in the manner acceptable to the city. The minimum widths are 24 feet for entrances and all drives not including parking, and 12 feet for one-way drives not including parking. Off-street parking is required at a ratio of 1.5 spaces per unit. And these driveways that are adjacent to each of the units accommodate 2 vehicles each. So we're exceeding that 1.1 spaces. Each unit must be connected to water and sewer systems, and that is something that the city will obviously be working with the applicant on if this goes forward. A stormwater system and drainage plans are required. Those would be required at the time of construction approvals. And then lastly, each unit must be installed as required by state and federal regulations, and that would be verified at the time of setting by the city's building inspector. This is a zoning map. You can see in red that I've highlighted the 2 lots in question. They are zoned UR1 residential, and you can see that to the east, west, and north, they are surrounded by other lots zoned residential. And then on the south there, they are bordered by some commercial zoning there that fronts on Trent. And then this comp plan map just, again, exhibits that the lots are located in an area right on the edge of a residential zone, but again, surrounded on 3 sides by residential. There are other multifamily developments in the UR1 zone. You're all familiar with the 55 and older community that went in I believe, 2019 on Fowler Road. And then directly south of this parcel that we're looking at, these parcels that we're looking at tonight, is a 4-unit manufactured home, mobile home park that's been there since at least 1983. That was the oldest correspondence I could find on that park. So with that, I can answer any questions that you have about the application or our processing of it.
Is there any questions from the hearing body at this time?
Christine, I have a question. So in the application, they put permanent, seasonal, and other. Did they clarify that at all?
No.
Other questions?
I have a question. So that list of different times that we have either allowed or not allowed mobile units, is that a complete list? There's never been another time other than from 67 through 86 that we have not allowed mobile units?
I would never say never. I didn't go through each and every ordinance that we have, but those were the ones that I was able to find.
Any other questions?
Christina, so I have a question about the traffic study. Will you get to that in the future? So I couldn't read the table. And so if we're going to talk about that now, is that part of your presentation?
A traffic study wasn't required.
So it's a Welch-Comer traffic letter.
That was submitted to us as a request for comments from agencies with jurisdiction. That was requested from our Public Works Department, and that is what they submitted us.
And so is it 235 trips per day? Is that what that table says?
I believe so, yeah.
Which page in the record is that?
Kelly, which page of the record are you on?
Yeah, so it would be page 80 on electronic. And I haven't seen a trip generation table before. So it looked like 235 trips per day.
On the weekdays, I believe.
So that's correct, Kyle.
That's the way I interpreted it, yeah.
Okay. And then on page 82, speed statistics, I had a hard time with that too. So that's from 2017. So is it the speed limit's 25 and it's exceeded 88% of the time? Is that right? Is that correct?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what I really didn't understand is at 7 p.m., is it 95% of the people are going 39 miles per hour? Is that how that reads?
Where's, oh, right there.
Well, so it's underneath
Yeah,
that.
95%,
Yeah, so if you look at the,
right? Same thing you're looking at, I think.
yeah, so it's the hours here.
Yeah.
So if you look at these hours and then 95%,
Right, and they have it broke down right there too.
yeah,
95%.
and it's 39 miles per hour, is that correct?
I'm guessing so, that's what it recorded.
Okay.
I have another question. In your presentation, you mentioned that, should this move forward, that there is time that you will be corresponding with the owner to figure out sewage and, plumbing for all units. Can you describe a little bit more about that process or what you anticipate to see? I know you don't have a crystal ball.
Well, no, I mean, the applicant will be required to connect to our water and sewer service just like anyone else. So there will be a construction plan for the development that will go through our utilities department for review on how it's going to be constructed. And then permits will be required for each hookup, for each unit. We would also be looking for, from the applicant, construction drawings for the manner in which the road is going to be constructed, and those would go through our engineers. And those are typical of any development of this nature. So there would be extensive permitting and review of construction documents and approvals necessary before they could do anything out there.
Have we ever historically had like a hiccup in that situation?
I don't believe so, but I will tell you this. When I came here in 2017 and the 55 and older community came in for application, Paul Allen was the Public Works Director, and he'd been here for 35 years. And at one point, he looked at me a little deer in the headlights and said, "We've never done anything like this in Millwood." So really, the 55 and older community is really the only experience that we have in Millwood. And that one rolled out just fine.
Other questions?
So as part of the development standards, these have to be 16 feet apart or 10 feet away from a parking area or private drive, each unit.
20 feet from the interior drive and 16 feet from other manufactured homes.
So the driveway on each parking area driveway on each trailer or manufactured home doesn't count into the 10 feet away from that.
Our code addresses driveways separately from parking areas. So this would need to be, 10 feet from like guest parking areas, if they were providing that, because they are providing adequate spaces next to each unit. That isn't really a consideration here.
Other questions? Mr. Sander?
I just became confused about the driveway versus parking versus, separation.
The area that's on the drawings proposed by the applicant, I guess the side yard, for lack of a better term, they've identified that as a driveway they've labeled it parking, but it's a driveway between each of the units. Driveways are not treated as parking under the code. Those are separate and distinct. It doesn't have to be used as a driveway by any occupant of any dwelling unit.
But that's included in that 16 feet.
In the 16 feet between the two the two manufactured homes.
But also, didn't we say the driveway was where they got their 2 cars per unit?
It could be, they could use that there, but that's not parking in terms of the code. Parking is for the public parking or guest parking areas under the code.
And does the application provide enough of those spaces?
Yes. They're required to provide 1.5 spaces per unit, and each one of those driveways will accommodate 2 vehicles.
But that's not parking, that's a driveway. I mean, is that not guest?
Talking about off-street. What he's asking about is the off-street parking. The driveway is separate and distinct from the code requirements for off-street parking or guest parking.
I don't
So there should be another spot for guest parking.
If you wanna put the drawing up and show him,
think the drawing showing.
where's the guest parking designation at?
There isn't one.
We don't have to have it.
Oh, that's right.
There's no requirement for guest parking.
It's the off-street parking area.
So off-street parking is,
You are correct. The off-street parking is in those driveway designated portions.
and my question was because it's called off-street parking and the requirement was to be 10 feet away from off-street parking. Or parking area. The code just mentions parking.
Can we go to the code? Let's pull up the code so we can see it.
That'll take a second.
Okay, thank you.
What section is it?
1752.
You guys don't have your code books? Come on.
You're the mayor, you're the.
I'm the hearing officer. I'm not supposed to be doing this. 1752? No, 17 what?
1752-030.
1752-030. So,
D.
D?
D.
We passed that. 1746, 1752, 030. A 030. Sorry. D. So 1752-030, design and development standards. Item D, all manufactured mobile homes and extension thereof, accessory structures and other buildings must be set back 20 feet from the boundary of the manufactured/mobile home park. 20 feet from a public right-of-way. 10 feet from a private interior drive or walking or parking area. So hang on. 10 feet from a private interior drive or walking or parking area. 16 feet from any other manufactured mobile home. That is it. There are four setback requirements.
question is it 10 feet from a private
A
street?
parking area.
Yeah.
Or parking area? Okay. Christine, if we go back to the plat, please.
So let me ask the hearing body this. Is this something you wish to do in deliberations, or is this something you wish to do now? Because I think it may be something that if you wish to delve into this in deliberations, this might be more applicable as part of the deliberation process, and then we can move into, if you have questions on the presentation, that's great. If you have, this appears to be more deliberative, I would suggest that we revisit this during the deliberation process and then move on to the public comment part of this, so we're not eating up that time.
I don't have any more questions on this.
So does any member of the hearing body have any questions on the presentation right now? All right, so at that point, we will conclude the presentation, and we will move, because we do not have an applicant, we will move to the public testimony. So, public testimony, we have 25 folks. We will allow 3 minutes for each speaker. As I said before, I'm gonna time this out. You get 3 minutes. No outbursts, please. Let's just keep this as civil and quote-unquote professional as possible. So I will call a person, give the person time. Your time will start when you get to the podium, so don't worry about that. I realize you gotta crawl out from everybody else, so your time starts when you hit the podium. Don't worry about that. I'll call the person's name. If I butcher your name, I apologize in advance. I'll do my best. Everybody seems to have pretty good handwriting. Awesome. So come up, please state your name and your address for the record. I'll time you out, and I will hold my hand up when you're just about done with your time. And then when I say time, you're concluded. So we'll do it that way, but we're not gonna put you wanna do the clock?
Give me a heads up.
Okay, so I hope
Will
this.
that be helpful to you to have that there?
Yeah, because I know it makes some people nervous to be looking at a clock ticking down, so I kind of go both ways on it. But if people generally feel that seeing that up there, not just a giant 3 minutes on the screen, but you can kind of keep track of it up there. But I will hold my hand up as we're getting closer, just for folks. So we're going to open the public hearing at 6:30. And the first speaker tonight is Rebecca Hatton.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I am Rebecca Hatton. I live at 9711 East Empire, and I've been there for about 20 years. I sought out a home in Millwood because I had been told that it was a desirable place to live due to its quiet, safe, laid-back lifestyle and rural feel and friendly people, and I have not been disappointed, except for the increased traffic. I own and operate an adult family home for adults with developmental disabilities, and for about 8 years now, they have not been able to walk around our neighborhood because the increase in unimpeded traffic by people speeding through our neighborhood as a shortcut to their own has rendered it unsafe for them, for all of us, to walk around our neighborhood most days and times of the week. Our traffic situation isn't new. It's been addressed before without anything really having been done about it. As recently as April, I understand Millwood staff were directed to work with Spokane Valley to develop calming measures for Empire, but then without that having been done, and with no new traffic studies, a 24-unit trailer park has been approved, a left turn lane onto Empire is being sought, and there's a proposal for an apartment building, a large one, just east of our city limits. What could possibly go wrong for a quiet, single-family residential neighborhood in a small town? What impact will these projects have on the rest of the town? Nobody knows because there's been no due diligence to find out, and that is the issue. Please say no to the trailer park. say no to the left turn lane, and stand up to the city of Spokane Valley over this apartment complex until the traffic ramifications have been studied. We don't even have the current traffic problem under control, and much more is looking to be added. Shouldn't we know if the added traffic from these projects can even be handled safely and calmly by our narrow two-way street, or two-lane street? Shouldn't we know what might have to happen in order for all the added traffic to be safely accommodated? Shouldn't we know whether or not it would even be possible or feasible to do this without transforming our neighborhood into something that it was never meant to be? Please, don't put the cart before the horse. Let due diligence reign. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Debbie Paulin.
My name is Debbie Paulin. I live at 10103 East Empire with my husband George, and I have lived there for 20 years, and I am not a public speaker. We are opposed to this manufactured home park for the following reasons. Traffic. Take care of your existing problems before you add more to it. In the environmental checklist under number 8, the land and shoreline use, they say there will be 24, 48 to 72 more cars. That's twice a day, or 3. No one will be on site to manage this property. Who do they call? Who's going to enforce the codes? It's really hard to get a hold of property management. The neighborhood is currently semi-rural, residential with large lots. Adding 24 manufactured homes makes it high density. Is this what we want in Millwood? I don't think so. Please help us protect the integrity of our semi-rural neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next speaker, Sheila Peters.
No, Mayor, or official, do you want me to do that other thing as well?
No.
Okay, great, awesome. I guess, throwing a little bit for that. Oops, sorry. Good evening. My name is Sheila Peters. I live at 10303 East Empire. According to Margaret Wheatley, there's no power to change greater than a community discovering what it cares about, and that's why we're here tonight. My husband and I have lived at that address for 41 years, and we're located right across from where the proposed manufactured home development would come in. We've lived on Empire since 1958, so that's 65 years or better. And I'm speaking to the potential tonight of increased crime because that was one of the things I was concerned about if a 24-unit home proposal goes through. While researching for statistics regarding a link between mobile home parks and crime, I actually found research to support both sides of that issue. So where did that leave me? It left me with the only tool I've got, and that's 75 years of life experience to guide me with my comments. I used to be a guardian ad litem with the Spokane County Judicial System, and a teacher and a part-time principal on a reservation. And many times for both of those different kinds of, or all those different kinds of positions, I had to go into the homes and have visitations. And usually the homes that I went to were low-income homes, and oftentimes I was called to trailer parks and trailer homes. And there were a lot of times when I saw myself what I considered to be criminal networking in those areas. And I call that criminal networking because it was like little pods and little groups within these manufactured home parks that were able to get together and sort of secrete themselves away from just the public, and they do, underage drinking and illicit drugs and sexual misconduct, gang-related meetups. There's a lot of neglect and abuse and molestation and social needs and all the stuff that I came across in those areas. I wasn't usually called to what I I'm going to term as a stable home, but I don't mean that as a judgmental thing. I mean a home that was a long-term residence. It wasn't a transient population. It was the people that were established in the community for a long time. In my neighborhood, we have crime already. We have plenty of traffic crime, speeding, running stop signs, reckless driving, road rage, 18-wheelers, and not too much policing goes on in the area. And we've made lots of calls, but there hasn't been a lot of support for us. Of course, there's growth and change is inevitable. We now have a pot store on the corner of our neighborhood, and we have something, I don't know what it is, a party venue where there's a lot of loud music and lots of parkers. Okay, thank you.
Next is Gloria McFadden. Did I get that right? You do not wish to speak. Thank you very much. So we will move on to Lester Peters.
My name's Lester Peters. I live at 10303 East Empire. The talk I'm going to give is just extemporaneous. I didn't prepare for it. I just wanted to talk to you about our situation, all of Millwood's situation. I've lived on Empire for 65 years, and most of the changes that have taken place have been good. I've noticed, obviously, that traffic has been exponentially increased over that period of time. Some crime, yes. Drugs, yes. Beer bottles on my front lawn. Pop bottles, you name it. I pick it up regularly. What I'd like to say is when this proposal went in, I thought, okay, well, maybe that wouldn't be too bad if it was double-wide manufactured homes on small lots, 10, 11 homes, and it's a small yard that people could have children in and enjoy it, and maybe an area where they could actually play. And then I saw the proposal of 24 homes. So I started researching that. And when you put 24 homes into that small of a space, you don't have green space. You've got a very small, crammed-in area where you're not talking about double wides. You're talking about mostly single wides. And a lot of these people, I didn't see that it said you had to have ownership, so you could come and go as you please, pull in, pull out. But pride of ownership, as we all know, I think stands for a lot. And I think when people own their space, they're more inclined to want to take care of it. They respect their neighbors more. They respect other neighbors in the area more. And I just think that when you put 24 units, I couldn't hardly believe it. I just thought, what is the point of that? I understand the developer's point. I totally do. And I'm not blaming him one bit. But I can guarantee you that Bellevue would probably not allow this to happen, especially in the neighborhood in which he's at. You can Google his address if you want. Anyway, I just want you to, in your heart, think real hard about what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is LaDonna Dement.
Hello, everybody. My name is LaDonna Dement, and my husband Kyle and I live at 10306 East Empire, right next to the proposed trailer park. We have lived in our house for 20 years this month. The proposed trailer park will negatively affect the nearby property values, especially those of us who live right next to the three sides of the park. Two of us spoke with two different local real estate agents by phone, and one has 15 years of experience in Spokane County. They both said that the values are typically driven down by 10 to 25% if they are located next to a trailer park. This is consistent with an article on Realtor.com called Neighborhood Features That Drag Down Your Home Value, which states that higher renter concentrations, which characterizes this proposal, reduces property values by an average of 13.8% nationally. An article from Spring Homes Realty in Colorado Springs also states that property value is brought down by areas with high rent concentration. Again, which is what this trailer park will bring to our neighborhood. Online, we also found some information which was called People Also Ask. The question was, how do I know my neighborhood is declining? You find that out by looking at property values, look at crime statistics over multiple years, and observe at how well people maintain their properties, and look at trends about the people moving in. So the proposed trailer park may look okay to start with, but many of the trailers in their property space will decline. We drove around to 2 trailer park sites and took photos. There are many others. The ones we drove to are Pinecroft Mobile Home Park at 11920 East Mansfield, which is at I-90 in Pines, and Timberline Mobile Home Park at 1965 East Wellesley, Spokane Valley. I used to work at a local restaurant close to the Pinecroft Trailer Park back in 1991, and this park was in terrible condition then. The condition has not improved in over 30 years. There are maybe 2 or 3 newer trailers, but many of the rest of them have mismatching paint or in need of paint, skirting on some of the trailers in multiple colors of metal, or plywood skirting that was not painted to match, porches and trailers in need of repair, and many dead lawns. Here are some of the photos. And I would ask, Mayor, that you would ask everyone to look at them on what the conditions are of these parks. So I'll leave them here if you would like to look at them. Through our online research, the following items were listed, or through other online research, were listed that bring down home values: noise and traffic, noise pollution, crime, and neighbors' yards that need attention. The proof from the photos I have here show that this proposed trailer park will certainly have some, if not all of these problems. We do know that new single-family dwellings would not devalue our homes. We ask that you really listen to all the concerns and information provided tonight, and that you deny the trailer park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to Penny Shepard.
My name's Penny Shepard, and I live at 9709 East Dalton. Although we don't live on Empire, where a lot of the traffic concerns are, we are impacted by that. My husband and I walk a lot, and we've almost been hit a few times, and we had one guy that literally was swerving over into the bike path. So we don't like to walk down that way anymore. With an increase of what everyone is saying on the traffic, there's a lot of people in our neighborhood that walk, that we like to walk, down to the park and go to the market on Wednesdays. We don't feel safe to do that anymore. And it's just, I just hope that you consider what it's going to be, the impact that it's going to be on the people that have lived in the area for years. The house that my husband and I live in right now, my parents built when I was 6 months old, and moved in when I was, they moved in when I was 6 months old. So I've lived in that house and been a part of that house and a part of Millwood for 67 years. We love it here. We would like it to stay the nice area that it is, and not be impacted by what we believe is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I get to take my glasses off. Next is Jean Pearson.
Good evening. My name is Jean Pearson. I reside at 10202 East Empire. My house was built in 1930, and I've lived there for 36 years. I'm certified in teaching young children how to save themselves if they fell in a body of water. And that is why my number one concern for our kids in Millwood is safety. The American Academy of Pediatrics reports young children have the motor skills to access roadways. However, they do not have the cognitive, perceptual, and behavioral abilities to negotiate traffic. According to the CDC, in 2020, more than 7,000 pedestrians lost their lives due to motor vehicles. Of those pedestrians killed, children under age 15 accounted for 20.4%, 65 and older accounted for 20%, and more than 60,000 pedestrians were injured. The number of deaths went up 13% between 2020 and 2021. That came from the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration. Allowing 24 mobile-type homes, including RVs, could potentially bring 96 more people, 48 cars more including visitors, and 20 to 50 more kids to the bus stop and walking to and from school. As the city knows, traffic on Empire has little to be desired. Speeding and stop sign running have been two of the main complaints. So adding so many children to the bus stop before making changes to traffic would be irresponsible of the city, and it should not be allowed until suitable traffic calming measures are put in place. Does this honestly sound like it will help or hinder Millwood, especially our children and our elderly? Traffic on Empire will double, triple, or possibly even quadruple with all the different plans on traffic they're looking at. Kids at the bus stops will be at much higher risk of death or injury due to increased traffic, and our walking community will most likely need to find new routes, changing a big part of the ambiance in Millwood. We, the residents of Millwood, respectfully ask that the council deny project MHP 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Alan Heidemann.
Mayor, Councilman, I'm Alan Heidemann, and my wife and I, Debbie, have lived at 10404 Millwood for 35 years coming on. I'm going to talk a little bit about the water for a second. You know, I don't have much real facts, but I have a shower and those kinds of things and a garden hose. I know when the water pressure goes on and off. Might be installing a new pump before long. The sewer. I spent time studying and studying. I grew up in the sewer world. You never put them in upside down, little pipe at the bottom, just like an hourglass glass. That big pipe's full of stuff, it gets full of gas. What I've been studying, it could be a real problem in the future. The animals. No one's come by and asked me what I've seen or what I've looked at. I got all this time on my hands this summer with a bad knee. I get to see lots of stuff. I've seen deer. I've seen 2 coyotes. I've seen 3 moose. One day I'm going to see a bear. Haven't seen that yet. Okay, the land specifies on here in one of the deals that you're supposed to be 500 feet away from an old house. Mine's closer than that, and there's apparently another one right next door. On the land, it states in there that it was never used for anything, but apparently to grow weeds on. Well, not according to my neighbor who lived across the street. The day I moved here, I got to be friends with him because he loved Millwood and made me love it in minutes because of the space. He tried his whole life to keep it that way down here at Millwood. Green beans were growing there. It's a pretty good cash crop. He'd tell me how big a green beans would grow there. It's pretty cool. The old people got old. Some land did get sold in there in little spots. Then they grew hay. They sold the hay to the local people across the river. It's cash crop, right? Okay, I mentioned my house is closer to that. Another thing is, you look at that one picture, there's 4 trailers there. Look at the space between them. Add the other ones up. Where are them people gonna put snow in the winter? That's only one question. You pass this deal and there's lots of other open spaces. How many of these are you gonna let into Millwood on Empire and the east side? What will it look like in 10 years? If this one goes through, there's several lots that'll go through after that, I assume. I just hope you guys all see it the way all of the rest of us here do. There's a lot of people that feel about it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Next is Steve Siebert.
Hello, my name is Steve Seifert. I live at 10507 Empire. I've lived here since 1987. I love this town. It's a great town. I worked at Kaiser, worked at UPS, raised my kids. They went to West Valley. We've got a traffic problem on Empire right now, and I know you've heard it already a million times. And I live down there where that the sign is, the electronic board. And if you look at that electronic board, I'll bet you 5 out of 6 cars speed when they go by that thing. I'm really concerned about the safety of the kids in the neighborhood. They put that many cars and that many trailers in that park, whatever you want to call it. They're not going to have enough room. Those guys are going to be parking on Empire. And I just hope you just really listen to what we're really talking about. You know, this is a safety concern, and we really don't want this in our neighborhood. So I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is Teresa Wiggins.
I don't care to comment.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Kate Burke.
Hello, my name is Kate Burke, and my husband Brian and I live at 10409 East Empire, and we bought that house 3 years ago this summer. Don't have anything prepared, but the fact alone that there has not been a traffic study to present this is absurd. That the water has been mentioned, yeah, anytime there's a high use of water, it barely trickles out of our faucets. House was built in 1952, so it's a little older, but I think the biggest thing for me is the traffic. I cannot tell you how many times I can hear, especially early in the morning, I can hear the cars, you can hear how fast they're going. You can hear it coming down the road, and they've got to be going faster than on Trent. 60, there's somebody that does it every day. Several people that do it every day. But that is probably my biggest concern. And then, yes, please consider what impact this is going to be. We moved to Millwood because we didn't know about Millwood until we started shopping for our house. It was awesome. We wanted something that was kind of in the city, but not. It's been great. We love our property. We just don't want to see the safety and the quality of the neighborhood go down. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Farwell.
My name's John Farwell. I live at 10413 East Empire. My dad, I think, got that place in '56, and when he passed away, I took it over in 1989. I think you guys said that we needed adequate water and adequate roads for this development to go in, and I've lived up there long enough to know that we don't. And everyone has mentioned repeatedly about this car speeding, and they use Empire as a shortcut to get from Trent to Empire or to Argonne, and they just go way too fast. And I can't think of the last time I saw a sheriff or anybody out there trying to do anything about it. Population density has me very concerned, and it's going to affect our quality of life up there as residents. And I'm asking you people to reject this proposal, for our sake. A lot of us have been up there a long time. Some of us have just moved up there. I hope you guys think that us citizens up there are important enough to listen to. Thank you, and please reject this proposal. I yield.
Thank you very much. That brings us to, we have Greg and Max McIntyre. Is there one? Thank you.
I wasn't getting it, but I will. I've been in Millwood, or not Millwood, but my name is Greg McIntyre. I live at 10610 East Empire. And I've watched Millwood go, and coming across the Millwood Bridge is Northwood. That was a lot of population, made a bottleneck at Trent and Argonne. Now, to go around Trent and Argonne, you take Empire and you shoot down Empire. Well, we've handled it so far. It's 2 lanes. Now you want to put down Coyote Rock. Coyote Rock has how many people, how many apartments, and how many vehicles? And then what if they're going to Deer Park or up to Northwood, the Prairie? Down Empire they go. They don't want to go to Trent. There's too much traffic. That's why they're coming to Empire. And I've watched it do it for over 50 years. I had other things I wanted to say too, but mainly it is the 2-lane. Oh, your bicycle trail. Your bicycle trail runs right out of Millwood and stops at Butler. And where do them bicycles go? They keep on going down Trent. Where do the homeless people and the kids that want to party and go swimming, where do they go? They go down by Coyote Rock. Everybody knows where the swimming hole is. Little kids know where it is. They're all going down that same 2-lane street. 1 lane one way, 1 lane the other way. That's it. You don't have room for 4-lane traffic through there as of yet. So let's get our bottleneck and stuff fixed before you start pushing it over this way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Tina Seifert.
Hi, good evening. Tina Seifert, 10507 East Empire. I've lived there since '92. Talking about this trailer park, of course, and the Millwood Municipal Codes and the Comprehensive Plan. The code defines as and includes mobile homes and recreational vehicles, as we all know. In other words, motorhomes that are not permanently affixed to a permanent fixture. They're on wheels and can easily be moved in and out. This is going to be an unmanaged proposed park. The code allows mobile home parks only under conditions that are, and I quote, reasonably compatible with existing and potential development of the properties in the vicinity. Obviously, it's not compatible with the citizens on the east side of Millwood. The UR1 zone in the code is defined as low-density residential. The purpose is primarily single-family homes on large lots in order to preserve the existing semi-rural nature of the area. The code also encourages retention of space. The UR1 zone requires a minimum of a 10,000 square foot lot per resident and an 80 frontage onto the street. At most, this proposal, when you look at with all of the setbacks in place, I cannot calculate how it could do more than 6 to 7 residences. The comprehensive plan, as amended in 2019 under housing, states that multifamily housing will be located near the central business district and public transit routes. Larger residential lots for single-family homes and duplexes will be required on the east side of the city to preserve the character of the neighborhood, while other residential areas of the city will maintain the character of a more dense development pattern. The large lots with single-family homes in East Millwood are essential to the character of our community, and it reflects our unique history. Allowing a congested, unmanaged trailer park in the middle of this semi-rural area violates Millwood's intentions as stated in the code and in the comprehensive plan. This proposal is actually the total opposite of what Millwood is about. Respectfully, we ask you all to consider all of our citizens here in Millwood. It's our home, it's your homes, and that you deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm probably going to butcher this last name. John Kmet? Mr. Komet will decline, so now we're at Ken Bain. Mr. Bain.
Good evening. My name is Ken Bain. I live at 9729 East Dalton Avenue. My wife and I purchased our home in January of 1976 because of the rural feel and peaceful neighborhood. The majority of the neighborhood are single-family homes on large lots maintaining that rural feel. This development's completely opposite of that. Currently Empire, and I know you've heard this from other people, currently Empire between Fowler and Argonne is a speedway in the morning and afternoons with people using it as a shortcut between Trent and Argonne. 24 additional units with 48 to 96 more vehicles is only going to make it worse. I respectfully request that you, the council, deny this permit for this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Barbara Bain. Ms. Bain.
My name is Barbara Bain. I live at 9729 East Dalton. And we've been there for 47 years and have loved it. I've seen a lot of changes in the time that we've lived here. Most of them positive, but not all of them. But this proposal, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for most of the people that I know I've talked to that live in our area. And if it was next to your house, would you feel comfortable? I certainly don't think that I would feel that the changes they're trying to propose to make are at all compatible with our neighborhood. People that live in homes that they care about, are invested in, are who we want. It's not that we don't want more development. We realize that it needs to happen, but not this way. This is just not friendly for the people of Millwood who've lived here for so many years and love it for what it is. I hope that you consider this and deny this. It's really important to the people who live here, past, present, and future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Winston Wiggins.
Mayor Freeman, members of the council. I am Winston Wiggins. My wife and I have lived at 9925 East Dalton for the past 13 years. We chose this spot for our home due in large measure to its semi-rural nature. You are hearing tonight from Millwood residents. They have spoken from the heart. I mean no disrespect when I say to you, you are not the city. The people sitting behind me and all the others that are not here are the city. You represent us, and we trust the best interests of Millwood. Not East Millwood, not the historic district, not the business district, but all of Millwood. We know we risk being labeled as not in my backyard obstructionists because of our objections. Nothing could be further from the truth. None of us have advocated leaving this vacant location in its current state. In fact, we have gone on record saying that we would not object to developing the site under UR1 standards. We object to this proposal not because it involves manufactured homes. These are already allowed on residential lots in Millwood. We object because of its density, its lack of compatibility with properties in the vicinity, and the fact that it violates the purpose of the UR1 zone to preserve the existing semi-rural nature of the area. We object because the application is misleading and full of haphazard, incomplete, and inaccurate statements. Statements that gloss over potential impacts not really addressed by the city. A review should include not only whether the questions have responses, but whether the responses are reasonably accurate. Anyone who claims human beings are invasive while proposing a 96-person development on 2 acres just isn't serious. This should have raised flags early in the review process. We stand here because we value our community and our town for the qualities it has, qualities that drew us here and keep us here. We make no apology for defending Millwood and its unique and beautiful strengths. Place yourself in our position and ask, will approval of this proposal help unite Millwood as a community, or will it further divide us into regional enclaves? We respectfully ask that you reverse the decision of the city planner and deny this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Travis Vosberg.
Hello, my name is Travis. I live at 10215 East Empire. I've been in and around Millwood my whole life. After World War II, my grandpa came back to Spokane and built houses all over the community. And the one I reside in now is the last one he built for him and his wife to live in. Pretty much don't have much else to say. Everybody kind of covered it. So, but I just want to say I agree with all my neighbors and the community. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you very much. David Backus.
I'm David Backus at 3008 North Woodruff. I think it's pretty much a general consensus that we're not prepared to handle what the trailer park could bring. I live in a nice little pocket where one side are train tracks and the train bridge. On the other side is Empire. The only way my kids are going to get off that street to go play in the neighborhood, to go to the park, is one of those two ways. I don't like that train bridge because they're derelicts and unsavory characters. I don't feel safe letting them go that way. I don't really feel safe letting them cross Empire, especially with the new traffic that I think most of us have expressed concern about. With that, go on what a lady said earlier, that high-density living situations bring more crime. I've been around the Spokane area. Millwood is a weird little pocket and one of the few places left I feel safe raising my kids. And really, that's what brought me out here. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Shereen Young.
Hi, good evening. Shereen Young at 8903 East Liberty here in Millwood. And I do appreciate the attention of the hearing body and the officer here. There's been so much already spoken today, and I think very eloquently. You can hear the great interest and passion in Millwood, and I just really appreciate that. So I would bring forward maybe a little bit different thought in the sense of a 24-unit mobile home park seems to be elevating itself beyond just residential housing and more of a commercial venture. I'm certain there's probably tax credits, a lot of varying things that would be utilized to make something pencil out. I know the lot was very expensive. And I also think as this develops, as that were allowed to go through, that there would be additional lots come up for sale. As you can hear, a lot of people, it's just not the area that they were intending to stay in and continue to raise their families. So you are potentially setting a precedent as you can consider this, as it is brought forward. And I think there's already been a lot said in regards to what compatibility might mean and maybe what we want it to mean. And so I'm just asking that very serious consideration be given, and understanding that potential precedence is getting handled here. This is probably more likely a commercial venture, which would mean a conditional use permit, not just a regular housing permit type residential thing. And so that's asking for your thoughts in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brings us to Gail Peterson.
Well, I have all the concerns that everybody else does, and so I'm really not gonna go into it all. The traffic thing, of course, using I'm sorry, 10412 East Empire. And I've been there 18 years, my husband twice that. But I did want to say that, they were talking about how we get the traffic off of Argonne coming down our street to avoid Trent. Well, we also get the traffic coming from Pines. They take and come the other way. So we have it coming both ways. And I agree, there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood. Right across the street from me, there's kids that they jet out on their bikes. And I've been passed twice on Empire just driving home, people passing me like it was a freeway. So that's a big concern, as of everything else that has been said. We love Millwood. I've been a North Sider and moved away for a while, and there's nothing like Millwood. So I agree with everybody else. We encourage you to reject it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to Elisa Seifert.
Hi there, my name is Elisa Seifert, resident 10507 East Empire Avenue, speaking on behalf of Chris Johnson, 3020 North Woodruff Road. As you know, I work as a police officer and work in the patrol division. I routinely am sent to lower income housing to include trailer parks and apartment complexes. I have seen the effects that occur when large apartment trailer and or low income housing are put in. Crime to include everything from domestic violence, assault, malicious mischief, and parties. These crimes will spill over into our family neighborhoods. Any such buildings and complexes that involve numerous citizens in one area cause problems. As I understand it now, our city pays a set fee for the sheriff's department and pay more as we use more police services. Spokane Valley and County are short police officers as well as departments across our county. Due to us just contracting for police services, we will get less services than the rest of the Spokane Valley. The sheriff's offices does not have the staffing to now respond to this park with 24 trailers in one small location. Besides the higher crime we will sustain, there will be a substantial more amount of traffic on Empire, as everyone has noted. And the city of Millwood has already failed to address this situation. I personally conducted traffic stops on cars on Empire when on my way to work or going home. I have only made stops on cars going double or sometimes at speeds of 60 to 80 miles an hour. Empire is a shortcut to get to and from Trent Avenue and Argonne Road. This will substantially add to our traffic on Empire and make it more dangerous. I have experienced the city of Millwood only enforcing fines and code enforcement where the homeowner lives in it and pays their taxes, follows the law. The city of Millwood enforces fines but does not do anything about the homes that disregard what the city says and or do not pay their mortgage, taxes, water bill. As trailer parks are usually lower income rentals, tenants or renters will more likely not take care of their properties and will have no consequences. This will involve the lowering of the values of our homes in the cities, and Millwood used to be a good location to live, but currently has been turned into a very large city, and we have lost our small town feet. In addition to that, I am also 23 years old. I have lived here my entire life. I'm currently trying to buy a home in this neighborhood. Do you know how hard that is? This is where I want to live. It is dangerous. I don't even go out at night anymore. I still live in my parents' house. You think I want to go out there and buy a home and raise a family like I want to in this neighborhood? Everybody else is unsafe, not even just my age. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. This is a lot, I don't normally speak. But this is kind of absurd. It's disgusting in my mind. Pardon my French for that. I want to grow up and have a family here. And you guys are preventing me from doing that along with many others in my generation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Denise Erdahl.
Hi, I'm Denise Erdahl, and I live at 10310 East Empire. We've been there for 45 years, and I just thank you all for listening to us and just take into consideration what we're saying. It's not that we don't want change or development, it's just 24 trailers seems like a lot to deal with. So just thank you for listening to everybody, and I agree with what all my friends and neighbors are saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our public comment, and so we will close the public testimony part of this hearing. We're going to take a 10-minute recess at this time, and we will reconvene at 9:27, actually, or, sorry. Not 9:27, man. We'll reconvene, actually, we'll reconvene at 7:30 to begin the deliberations portion of this. And so at this point, we will go into recess. Thank you.
no critique again. They're so far above us.
Thank you. So now we will begin the deliberation process for the hearing body. And at this point, I will simply turn this over to the hearing body to begin discussion based on the city's presentation, your questions, and the presentations from the appeal, or the appeal itself, and then the public speakers. So open it up for deliberation.
Mr. Worst, I have a question. So to start with, I understand there's RCW. We have to treat this like any other single family. Is that correct?
There is multiple RCW provisions that require the treatment of manufactured housing consistent with single-family housing, actually give it some preference to some extent.
A clarification to that. So do we have to treat the entire 24 units as a single family, or that we just have to honor that a mobile house is equivalent to a single family dwelling?
Well, under our Millwood Municipal Code 1752, the Planning Commission and the City Council have authorized that there be multiple manufactured housing units on one parcel. So that was a decision that was made in 2015 and is carried on through the code amendments.
So basically, we can't discriminate based on mobile homes.
Right.
So, okay. So I can start. I have lots of concerns. I have concerns with the application. I have concerns that they put permanent, seasonal, and then other was marked. I don't think that's clear. I also have lots of concerns with the density. I think that objectively, I think the traffic is substantial. So I think that's a substantial concern, safety concern. We're looking at 235 car trips per day. And that's already to existing road that's taxed.
With a median speed of 39 on it, 45.
Well, so, and 25 mile per hour speed limit is being exceeded 88% of the time, right? At 7 p.m. And this is from 2017.
Yeah.
Right, so we all know traffic's increased. So at 7 p.m., 95% of the traffic was going almost 40. So for me, that's fairly, that really plays into reasonable compatibility. So when we go back to that, I think that you can, and I do have questions, it sounds like Sean does. I have the same question in terms of the setback. But I think our key issue is reasonable compatibility. And so for me, I don't see the reasonable compatibility. I was on planning and zoning 2015. Unfortunately, my memory's not that great. I did talk to Mr. Worst. We looked at the minutes. It's not definitive in terms of reasonable compatibility and definition. So unfortunately, we didn't put definitions for reasonable compatible, but I would say that that's a key component. And so for me, it's not compatible. I think there's traffic safety issues.
To dovetail off of what Kelly's saying, I recall my first or second year of being a council member that we were doing some serious traffic calming studies. There was a lot of talk about different mitigation techniques that we can use, and then it just kind of fell off, and COVID happened. No doubt that slowed things down. But honestly, until this came about, I had not been hearing how increased it is. And yet I drive to my friend's house, over on that side, and we have that thing. And if that's recording, we are creating our own documentation of an 88% situation times multiple years that has gone unaddressed. And so I am very glad to have my eyes opened to a situation that I honestly feel should be our priority to start fixing.
Yeah, I live over there. And over time, I guess you just
outside. You don't, you just stay in the backyard. That's what you come accustomed to, but it shouldn't be that way. It should be, and I understand, I mean, when COVID happened, the price of material, the price of construction skyrocketed, so what we had budgeted wasn't, no.
So just to clarify on the traffic calming, the city did an extensive outreach. We had a proposal. We got a lot of pushback from people in the area because they didn't like that proposal. And as I said, originally, it took land, it took money, it required stormwater. We have other proposals we can do, but one of the things is, once they go in, they don't come out. If we put engineered systems in there, they're in. And I will also inform the council this, or also inform the hearing body this. We have the same traffic issues everywhere. So whatever you do at Empire, you're gonna have to be prepared to roll it out everywhere else in the city for anyone who asks. So just be aware.
Yeah, I totally understand it, and no matter what, you're gonna have pushback. There is no golden ticket. But right now, it's not working.
So tying into Kelly's mention of density, if you're 16 feet apart on each unit, 12-foot driveway, the exhaust pipe of the car is 4 feet away from the next house. And I can't imagine the planning committee thought that was what that intent was when they codified this. So to me, it appears the plan doesn't even meet the element D of 1752-030.
Right, I agree. Yeah, I think that, and tied into that, if it's seasonal, what does that mean? So does that mean that, we're gonna have a campground type? Right? It could be, yeah, right? It could be 2 months. That's not compatible, right? We're talking about a semi-rural area. Oh, the other thing, so I actually counted the lots. So there's 23 lots on Empire from Woodruff to Butler on the south side. That doesn't include these 2 lots. And remember, this is an estimate, gentlemen. I'm not an engineer, and lady. And 22 lots on the north side. So if we do 24, that's increasing it by a third. I'm not comfortable. I think that's too much.
I'd like to ask a clarifying question about the 500 feet close to the older houses that are already pre-existing. I had not heard that before. Do you have any clarification, or had you ever heard that in the code? It was brought up in the testimony and I had not had that.
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
So,
go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead, yes.
Would it make a difference if they were on the historical list?
The proximity to the other house.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what, I'm sorry.
Dan was asking if that 500-foot proximity may have meant a historical site or other monument.
I am not aware of what that is. I don't know what that was referring to. I can tell you that there are no houses over there on any historical registers that I'm aware of.
But there are some that are eligible.
Yes.
So for me, 24 is too much. I won't be opposed, if it was a clear application, and as Sean brought up, if all the criteria are met, I think the application's flawed based on the setback. But if it was permanent, I wouldn't be opposed to it, right? But not 24. I don't think that's compatible. And I think we have reasonable objectives to say the traffic is an issue, safety is an issue, the traffic impacts from the other thing, in the Welch-Comer traffic letter, did you notice it said, well, it will not cause measurable increases in delays? Argonne right? Argonne. There's too much traffic. We all agree on that.
Hey, Kelly.
But,
Kelly?
yes,
They can't base it on a traveling momentum factor. What they base it on is an intersection and how long you have to wait at that intersection. So it goes by number of seconds you'd have to wait for an opposing car at an intersection.
okay, Kyle. So I should have asked you about that ahead of time because that seemed like a kind of a silly thing to say. So it's actually an objective at the intersection.
Yeah.
It's not going to cause increases.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good clarification. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle.
I do have a follow-up question about the water. I know that we just redid our water plan again last year. Dan, is anything you heard? I always defer to you as an expert. I don't know if that's fair, but
It's a Mac question.
Mac, have in any of our numerous studies, is there credence to this water flow issue that is being articulated?
No, it won't affect the pressure by having more houses there.
Thank you for your answer. I'm not a water expert.
Well, I think the things that first of all, we've got the code, which is partly ours, but that's given to us by the legislature, what we can do and what we can't do. And so we've done some of those things. I think there's some holes that we should investigate about, perhaps adding to the code. One is the maintenance of the facility. I mean, we have a management, but who's mowing the lawn? Is that gonna be 24 different lawnmowers, or what? But also, the garbage, solid waste, residential waste is, but it's not, we don't have it in the code. So there's questions. I think perhaps the other thing that, code-wise, if we were to do a mobile home park with conditional use restrictions or concerns, that would have some more things we could monitor, be involved with. The lot size of the zoning is 10,000 square feet, so we could have 8 lots on that. And realizing mobile home park, mobile homes could be greater than that. I don't know if maybe double, but triple, I don't think so. That's too much.
So I will remind the hearing body again that your only options tonight are to either reject the proposal or accept the proposal. You cannot, you either find it compliant with the city's code or you find it not compliant with the city's code. That is what is before you. We can't design on this. You can't put restrictions. It is obvious that in our code, this type of, regardless of any perceived deficiencies in the code allows for manufactured housing to be placed in the UR1 district. That you either deny or you approve.
If it's reasonably compatible, right?
That is not a separate standard.
There is no, there is no,
That is not a separate
No.
criteria standard. Hold on, I gotta step in, because if you're gonna make a decision, the council's gonna have to render a written decision on this. I cannot let you walk into a situation where you render a decision based on legal factors that are not before you. The reasonable compatibility is under the intent section of that. The code as drafted as proposed by the planning commission and adopted by the city council, proposes that these standards and the locations that were identified as reasonably compatible. So if you're going to use reasonable compatibility as a separate standard, I've just advised you that it is not a separate standard under the code. You can proceed accordingly. The other part that you need to be mindful of is we're talking about who's responsible for maintenance and solid waste. You don't impose in conditions on other single-family dwellings. You cannot treat this development inconsistent with other single-family dwellings in that area. Same thing with permanent, seasonal, or other uses. You do have single-family unit dwellings in this city that are seasonal uses. So to the extent, I'm just asking you to be mindful of, if you're going to make a decision, it's gotta be based on the criteria. That's all I'm asking you to think about.
We allow non-owner occupied homes. We allow rental homes here. We don't discriminate against that. And we certainly do not go around and make people cut the grass or anything like that. So just be aware of those types of findings if you make those.
If there's less than 10 feet from a mobile home to a parking area, would that be compliant with the code?
You've raised it, I think it's an area that I think is open to interpretation there. If that's the council's interpretation, that would be the council's interpretation.
So I'll make a motion to reject the administrative decision based on incomplete or incorrect application based on setbacks.
I'll second that motion.
You're gonna wanna be a little bit more specific. So are you saying that it's you're rejecting on the basis of failure to satisfy criteria under 1752-030D3? Is that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. That's gonna have to be reflected in your written decision. This can be appealed. So I just want you to, I don't want you to adopt a decision that does not reflect the will of the council. Or
Hearing
that
body.
is of the hearing body, or that is open to interpretation by either Growth Management Hearings Board or Spokane County Superior Court. So, 1752-030
Section D.
D. And are you limiting it to 3, section 3?
I think section 3 is the only one applicable to that.
Okay, sorry, Councilman Stravens made the motion, I interrupted out of order, but I just want to make sure that it reflects the
Yep,
appropriate
that's
motion.
correct. And just for clarification, Mr. Wirth, so our opening sentence, right? And so I'm still a little bit concerned and confused that it says that has to be reasonably compatible with existing and potential development. So are you saying that we don't have the ability to look at reasonable compatibility?
I'm saying as the code was adopted by the planning commission and the council, it was, this design standards and the locations were deemed to be compatible. That is an intent section, and under standard statutory construction, you can use the intent section to interpret the code, but it's not a separate criteria in and of itself. At the time, as we've talked about at the time, there was some discussion about whether you can use conditional use permit or variances or other standards to allow for this. That was not adopted as a standard, nor do I think you can include it as a CUP standard under this code. So I just would, again, the council can proceed as it wishes on adopting the reasons for its decision. I just would be cautious on using a standard that's set forth in a determination or intent section of the city code.
So for clarification, I understand very clearly that your standpoint is that you cannot adopt this as a limiting factor in of itself, but it is the opening paragraph to the code, so I feel like that is there for a reason requiring interpretation. So in union with a clear question of code violation, can it be reflected in our motion that, yes, this is about the parking, but this is also in open, to the opening?
It's not in the design standard. There's nothing in the design standard for manufactured home parks that say it has to be compatible with the surrounding uses. If it was intended at the time of which it was proposed and promulgated, then it would have been included in the design standards. That's my advice. I don't know if
That is the city's legal advice.
that is the city's legal advice. If you wish to go there, you may. It's the hearing officer's, it's the hearing body's decision. It's just not, it's not in the design standards. There's nothing in the design standards that says it has to be compatible.
It is in the code.
Add it to the motion, that's fine.
If
That's your decision.
if that is the will of the body. Now, what we have on the table right now, okay, so now we're in the motion phase. What we have on the table right now is a motion by Councilmember Stravens that is to deny under 1751.
1752-030, section D3.
D3. That has been seconded by Mr. Culler. No discussion has occurred. So if you wish to amend, we can go into discussion and you can move to amend that motion, or you can choose to vote on the current motion.
I would like to move into discussion because I have a couple more clarifying questions to ask. So what is the next step if we rendered, what's the next step of appeals? Could you please explain that process to us?
The applicant could appeal. I believe the next step would be up to the Spokane Superior Court under a Land Use Petition Act matter. Could be.
A clarifying question, but they can only discuss what we input into the motion of why we may accept or deny. So if we say that it's parking, that is the only issue that will be discussed. If we say that due to our interpretation of the code, there is a Mr.
Compatibility issue.
Then that becomes something that can be discussed as well. Is that a factual understanding?
If I were, you would hope that would be the case, but when you put it in the hands of the court, I can't say that that would be the case. Any of that's why I tried to be reserved. I think I've told this council in the past, I do not like jumping into the middle of your discussions because I don't want to interrupt the flow of your policy discussions. But that's why I needed to make clear that we're not basing a decision on matters that are clearly in violation of state law. The standards that would be different than treating another single-family unit or single-family housing unit. I think if there's different ways for the council to consider this. If you want your decision to be as comprehensive and all-encompassing, then you probably should include the reasons for which you make the decision. Doesn't mean all three have to win on appeal. Only one has to win for your decision to be upheld. So if you want to proceed, it's just that if there are bases that are otherwise contrary to the city code or state law, those could be subject to attack. Doesn't mean that anything else that you have in your motion that isn't subject to attack or that you win on may not change the decision. I can't tell you what the Spokane County Superior Court would do on that.
That's fair. Thank you very much.
And this is not a complete finding of fact. The whole decision would be in, if it was a loop of the whole decision, the whole record would be open. So the court will not just rule on what your findings of fact are today. The court will rule on the whole record. Could rule on the whole, thank you. Could rule on the whole record.
Can I ask another clarifying question? Christine, are outbuildings and porches and decks included on, there's not on any of the plans that we saw, and I know that there'll be another set of more detailed plans. But can they have outbuildings for each site and a deck or a porch? Is there any limitations on size of that?
I think there is something,
Yeah, scrolling down.
I believe there is something in here down at maybe
17.32.030. Item D.
Accessory structures.
But yeah, accessory structures and other buildings must be set back. That's that, I don't have them labeled A, B, C, D up there. It's each structure must be set back. That would include any accessory structures.
So And accessories.
Or extensions, which would be like a
So
porch
their
or.
porch would have to meet the same setbacks.
Thank you for indulging my discussion to your motion.
And then since the permit to place the mobile home needs to be for the occupant or the owner of the mobile home, if there's turned to be a non-compliance with an individual home, do we, for example, skirting, some of the pictures we saw, the skirting is no longer there for a manufactured home, which required a permit that had that. If that's be a violation. Is that a violation against the park? Or
Yes.
a violation above the person who actually has the permit?
It would be a code enforcement violation, and those are taken against the owner of the property.
In all cases, in the city.
So how does that fit with individual home?
It's not individual lots.
Okay, so, but the permit is individual.
Owner of the underlying real estate, the legal owner of the underlying real estate would be subject to code.
So I suppose it'd be like a commercial building that had defects somewhere, fell out of compliance. It's not the owner.
I don't think it's any different, Dan, than when we code enforce on a single-family residence where there's a renter. I don't enforce on the renter. We enforce on the property owner. It's his responsibility to make sure that his property is in compliance ultimately.
So going back to the amended motion.
There's no motion for an amendment yet. So you would need to.
So discussion.
You're in discussion. Now, if you wish to, you can move to amend, the current motion to add or delete or whatever.
So discussion about an amendment. I'm in favor of adding reasonable compatibility that's not reasonably compatible. I have immense respect for Mr. Worce's opinion. It's in the code, so 1752-030. But I'd like consensus or some confirmation.
I'm willing to make the motion if you're willing to second it. I mean.
Sure, go ahead.
I make a motion that we.
Could we hold up?
Yeah.
For a second? So we have to articulate in writing the decision with the existing code. And there's an intent section in that code. So that could be difficult to articulate.
And I will advise you as the hearing body that you will need to, whatever your findings of fact and conclusions are, you will need to appoint one of you to work with Mr. Worst to develop your findings of fact and conclusions. City staff will not participate in that. That is your decision as the hearing officer, is the hearing body.
So.
All I'm saying is to have the motion as is, would be a relatively straight articulation of finding of fact. Without kind of getting into the weeds.
Right.
we'll say.
Understood.
Right. It is very clear, yeah, and so you're correct, Sean.
Here's what I'd propose to you. I think we're hearing what the basis of your decision is. You guys can designate, so here's the way the written findings and conclusions have to, you can't work outside of a meeting collectively to draft. So you could appoint two of you to work on it or one of you to work on it. I'm happy to wordsmith and help you kind of get it framed so it satisfies a final order, a written decision for appealability purposes. I think as the Planning Commission has seen in the past, decisions don't always come back in one form. We can have alternate language that you can deliberate at the next meeting in your written findings or conclusions. You can decide to strike certain language from those written findings and conclusions. and just proceed on one basis or two basis or three basis, something like that. So I think key to taking that next step for your decision is to identify the reasons tonight for which you would, the reasons that you'd like to see framed in a written decision to come back to you. What's our timing? July?
So 6th.
6th, I believe.
So you will need to finish the hearing body will need to finalize their decision. You will need to have another meeting to adopt that decision. That meeting could potentially be done remotely because there is no public input at that as part of the special meeting. You've made your findings and you can do what you need to do there. But regardless, we are coming up on 4th of July weekend, long weekend, so. Oh, it is Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
then never mind. You guys got all next week.
Okay, yeah, because I was just gonna say, I'm open on the 4th if you guys are.
I'll be in a field in Yakima.
All right, so based on our discussion, I'm comfortable with the motion I presented not being amended.
So we did not have a motion or a second. So right now, you're still, no, not on the amendment.
Yeah, we're not.
Right, but there's,
He made a motion to amend,
but there was no second on the,
Nobody made a motion to amend. He merely discussed that he would be
oh,
supportive.
okay, I thought
and
he
we
had
decided
started
to
with the
table
motion.
it.
Okay, my apologies. So currently, there is the motion to deny on the basis of,
1752030 D3 and the reasonable compatibility standard to be reflected in written findings and conclusions of the council.
do you want, I don't think they approved that. They did not approve the reasonable compatibility.
That's just the discussion point. Right now, the only motion's on 1752030 D3.
Yeah, and I'm willing to work with Mr. Worst. Do we have someone else to work with Mr. Worst? Okay, Sean.
What if I don't wanna work with you?
Well, that's what I'm working on. I was gonna make the, how about if I bring the beer, Mr. Worst? I need you want to.
I'm joking. I'm sorry. All right.
So the body has designated Mr. Stravens and Mr. Culler to work with Mr. Worst. We have a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion of this motion? Now, I will say, please, regardless of whatever happens, people can voice their opinions after we're done with the meeting. So let's just do this. So is there any further discussion from the hearing body tonight? All in favor of the motion on the table, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion to deny is approved unanimously.
Let's say July 9th. It's just
Now, we have to set schedules. Okay, so in the next, what?
doesn't matter. I think it's the
You think it's the 8th? So we will confirm with you individually what the next meeting schedules need to be. Please anticipate, is anybody going to be out of town the entire next week
I will be leaving town Friday
of the following week,
on July 7th.
on July 7th?
I'm here until then.
Okay, so we could potentially hold a special meeting following the 4th, so the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th. No, 5th or the 6th. Because that's Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, all right, so we know that schedule. We will coordinate with you. There is no further business before this hearings body tonight, so at 8:04, I will adjourn the hearing. Thank you very much. Now just remember, boys and girls, if you don't have any insurance for roof actions,